Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be having a look at my top 5 fragrances from Parfums Vintage. Of course, they're known as inspired expressions, these fragrances which imitate other already existing fragrances. These ones are great, reasonably priced I think, but of course not cheap. Now if you do want to go for some cheaper alternatives to famous niche or designer fragrances, there's nothing wrong with that. So I thought I'd just give you a quick list of some of those options before we get into today's video.
When I want to smell fresh and youthful, I like nothing better than to spritz on a little bit of a Lao Homme Sport. Notice that's the special Antural spray version. One of the most prized possessions in my collection is my vintage bottle of Donna Gabbana for men. Dupe can be expensive, can't it? So why not try Job for Men instead? If you've been tempted by zoologist fragrances but you're put off by the slightly high price tag, why not get yourself some Sauvage Wolf? And now onto the Aventus alternatives. The real thing of course is pricey. Pineapple vintage fragrances are slightly expensive too, let's face it. But who's likely to know the difference if you wear a Neptunes instead? And who wouldn't want to open up their birthday or Christmas gift and find that they've been presented with a bottle of Greet Aventus?
Hi guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be having a look at my top 5 fragrances from Parfums Vintage, or Parfums Vintage greatest hits if you will. Before that, one important piece of news: Gravitas Pour Homme is back in stock in the USA and Canada as of today, shooting this video. There's a link in the description and in a comment down below if you would like to order it in the USA and Canada. It's back in stock, great news. Hurry while you can. I think we've got about 100 bottles. We'll be getting more over soon, but there might be another gap where it's not available soon. Okay, Parfums Vintage, a brand famed for inspired expressions, also known by many people as clones, and very much known for their many different versions of Aventus type fragrances under the Pineapple Vintage range, of which there are numerous variants. I should mention, of course, that all these fragrances were sent to me for free very kindly by Parfums Vintage over the years. I wouldn't mention them or feature them on the channel if I didn't really think they were worth talking about and worth sharing with you. There are different ones, some more pineapple heavy and fresh, some kind of balanced, some emphasizing the smokier elements of Creed's famous Aventus, famed for being a very versatile masculine fragrance: bergamot, pineapple, apple, blackcurrant, birchwood, vanilla, patchouli, some floral notes, jasmine and rose, sometimes listed, a bit of musk in the base. Superb fragrance, very, very good stuff. Most people frustrated nowadays that they feel that modern batches of Aventus don't perform as well as it used to. It's famous for batch variations, and Pineapple Vintage, or sorry, Parfums Vintage with their Pineapple Vintage range give us the option to have maybe better performing fragrances that are stronger in performance than the certainly current versions of Creed's Aventus, and that give you the option, you can have a bit more of a smoky version, or you can have a more citrusy or more pineapple version. I've got 2 great ones to kick off with from their large range. I'll put a graphic on the screen actually on their website that shows which ones are more pineapple heavy or smoky or whatever. I've always really liked the brand. The prices are sort of a little bit above a designer fragrance kind of level, roughly speaking, much below Creed prices. They vary a bit from fragrance to fragrance. So they're not cheap. You've got to buy into it. You've got to believe that these are really good to want to buy these. And I think in some cases, I can honestly say they definitely are. So the first one, a pretty new one actually, Pineapple Vintage Intense The One. Their biggest seller actually over at Parfums Vintage is Pineapple Vintage Intense. This is a very fresh interpretation of Creed Aventus, the same note listing, but I think really the pineapple note is amped up. There's a much more photorealistic pineapple scent than you ever really got in the actual Aventus. Some people will really love that. Some people may not, because it's therefore not totally true, I don't think, to how any batch of Aventus smells. Intense The One basically I think has the same exact scent profile, but is just amped up in concentration and takes the performance of the Pineapple Vintage Intense up a notch. I've tested it out, it lasts really well, almost to the point be careful, it could be slightly annoying, don't overspray this to work. The whole Aventus type scent seems to have a phenomenon where people wearing it themselves maybe think, oh, it's not performing as strongly as I'd like, and I think this applies to these too, but people around you really pick up on this. It's a very sharp, piercing, noticeable kind of fragrance. That's certainly true with these Parfums Vintage ones, and I've tried them out with Claire from the Smurfy Girly channel, and even when I'm thinking, oh, I don't think I can smell that much, she's always saying, no, trust me, you can still smell it. So I think really good performance from my testing on this one. And of course, Pineapple Vintage Intense, their most popular variation. So if you like the freshness, I think that has to be pretty high on your list of priorities to try out. They offer these in 50ml and 100ml sizes, and the prices, I'm just gonna give you the price of Euphony Intense, which is coming up soon. I'm not gonna go through every one because they're similar prices, but there are some variations. So Euphony Intense, for example, 50ml $89 or 100ml $139. That one's based on Erolfa, and the original Creed is $415 for 100ml. So they are much better value than the Creeds. If you're enjoying the video, guys, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already by hitting the button down there, then you won't miss any future videos that I make. Moving on then, the next Aventus one, there's only going to be 2 of those in this list. There could have been 10 or something, that I wanted to feature is Emperor Maximus. This is probably my personal favourite in the way that it smells of all the Aventus ones that I've tried, and I've tried a lot of them. Emperor Maximus, I think Damien Stammers, the perfumer there, really feels this is his finest hour in terms of getting a really well balanced Aventus type scent that doesn't have the Pineapple Vintage signature OTT pineapple thing, which some people like. And I have to agree, this doesn't have that uber obvious pineapple opening, but it's super juicy, super bright, very much leaning towards this more citrusy side of Creed Aventus batches, but not ridiculously so. Apparently it's sort of modelled a bit on the profile of 2017 and 18 batches of Aventus. I'm not hugely familiar with the different batches. People say those are a little bit more citrusy than it used to be in the old days. Very nice performance, really strong longevity and projection on this one. There is an extract version. I've got the normal eau de parfum. I find that close to beast mode in performance, and it's just a really beautifully balanced batch of Aventus. It could pass for an Aventus batch. It opens with the bergamot, the apple, that beautiful crispness. It smells so fresh, you know, like this bottle was made yesterday. All the citrus notes still sing. Maybe if you get, I've heard a lot on Facebook groups like the Aventus Lounge, if you get a bottle from 2016, 15, even 17 now, some people say the top notes are fading a bit. Of course, with these, they're just made now, so you're not going to have that issue. So I think this is a superb, probably my favourite Aventus clone in the world as of this moment, Emperor Maximus. Pineapple Vintage Emperor Maximus. So check that one out, guys. I think that's relatively new as well in their line.
Don't forget, if you'd like to join the Smelly Army private members club over on Patreon, there's a link in the description to do that. It costs just $2 a month, and you get an extra video from me every week, plus you get to watch everything I've already uploaded in there. We're building a really nice community, lots of interaction, and I'd love to see you in there.
So on to the one that I just mentioned, it's Erolfa. Not many brands give a clone of this. I don't know many clones at all of Creed's Erolfa. It is a brilliant, brilliant fragrance, one of the freshest Creed fragrances. If you like Millesime Imperial, it's in that kind of ballpark, but it's slightly more leaning towards herbal and green notes instead of the emphasis on the fruity, almost sweetness that you get in the Millesime Imperial, which has a kind of melon note. So for me, Euphony Intense is just an absolutely brilliant rendering of Erolfa. The box looks something like this. All the box is the same. I like the presentation. Yes, they're all similar, but it's a very neat formula, and I think they look really great. Euphony Intense then amps up the performance and captures the smell really close to exactly. It's got that lovely kind of sea spray in the air smell, loads of citrus notes. I think there's coriander, there's a little bit of jasmine, there's some floral elements in this one, there's musk in the base, and a kind of ambergris element, and some kind of ozonic sea air. It's like being hit in the face with sea spray off the sea if you're in a boat or something, but that wouldn't actually necessarily be a good thing or smell quite like this, but it somehow embodies that kind of feeling in an olfactory way. Great performance on Euphony Intense, and it's much stronger than my relatively recent batch of Erolfa, which is actually not terrible in performance, but this takes it up to the next level. There's a non-intense version of Euphony. I haven't actually got that, but on what I've found so far, the intense one would be probably my preference, just because I found it to be such a good performer. I think they've amped up something to do with the citrus notes, so they last longer within the fragrance or something like that, compared to the Intense, which maybe is a little bit closer in being exactly like the original. But I'm not really au fait with the difference between the two versions. I have the Intense. It is absolutely superb. Of all the ones in this list, this is my current actual favourite Parfums vintage scent. Euphony Intense. If you've smelled Erolfa, you cannot go wrong with this, trust me. Okay, 2 more to go. One here, probably a bit more under the radar, and this one is Summer Bottled. Summer Bottled, again, I'm filming in summer, so let's talk about some freshies for a lot of the video. Summer Bottled is their take on Parfums Luminis, a very, very beautiful, fresh fragrance, a masculine scent, which is often said to have a gin and tonic type of vibe, like a gin and tonic for your skin. The main problem with it for most people, apart from the fact it's quite expensive, is that it doesn't last very long. It's famed for having poor performance. Summer Bottled has really, really nice performance and smells exceedingly similar to Parfums Luminis. Some of the notes: bergamot, cardamom, black pepper and juniper berries. That's all they list, actually. Some people also mention peony. Very, very beautiful, crisp, and you've got the kind of juniper gin and tonic signature thing. If you've ever smelled a lovely gin and tonic, it's a bit like, oh yeah, it's so natural smelling and vibrant and crisp that it's just beautiful. And I love the performance on this one. Lasts really well. Almost, yeah, be careful wearing any of these to the office or anything. You might think they're fresh, so you're fine. Don't overspray too much with Parfums Vintage, because you may think you're not smelling it, but they do have stellar performance. So that's number 4 in my list, which is not in any particular order. Finally, these were a whole ton of freshies, so let's talk about something that's not really a freshie, and this is Brutus Oud. This is the Parfums Vintage tribute to Roger Parfums Amber Oud, a very oriental fragrance, a spicy oriental exotic type of fragrance, which features, of course, an oud note, as the name suggests. There's sandalwood in there. There's a whole ton of spicy notes, some of which I'll just list for you. So you actually get an opening of lemon, lime and bergamot. There's rose and jasmine, ylang ylang, there's oud, birch, oak moss, patchouli, saffron, sandalwood, ambergris, civet, musk and orris root. So that's a heck of a note listing. It's a very wearable oud rose type of fragrance with a little bit more going on. There's a certain underlying sweetness. I think a nice beautiful sandalwood note and a really classy, unisex, grown-up kind of fragrance. Roger Parfums, exceedingly expensive. This by no means cheap, but something most of us could afford to buy a 50 or 100 ml bottle of without absolutely breaking the bank. So for a bit of contrast there, Amber Oud, I think, is a less talked about one from the brand that I really rate very highly. Okay guys, so that's about it. Let me know what you thought of the video. Have you tried any of these? Please give me your thoughts down in the comments below. And remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Smelly.